Hi everyone and welcome to the start of a brand new week, and today we have a dev blog slash update slash regular update that's laid out like a dev blog. Are you confused? You should be, because I am. But anyhow, let's just roll with it, because I'm going to read through it as we usually would for a dev blog and just not call it necessarily a dev blog, because I don't know what to call it at the moment. So it's titled Introducing Ogeru. And that will be my first and last attempt at pronouncing that in this video. So it took its sweet time, but here comes this milestone, the long-awaited FOBs. Now, I'm going to be honest, and I know what people are going to say in the comments. How is this a milestone? It's just the FOBs. I honestly cannot give you an answer to that. I'm afraid I'm a little bit lost with it as well, as I thought it was just going to be a minor patch based on the previous milestone that they announced. But anyhow, so these are basically adding their new field supply points. They're no longer called FOBs. And first they would like to apologise for the delay, because FOBs weren't something that they had intended for WARNO, and thus the buildings weren't part of the code anymore. So they resurrected them to grant the community request, and they had brought it back from scratch, so that took longer than expected. The FOBs design also delayed us for research what actual field supply points would look like in real life, instead of just reproducing Wargame Red Dragon's hard concrete infrastructure. Our 3D artist put such heart in the task, and the new model was so detailed, it became too CPU heavy and had to be optimized several times to fit the game properly. Finally, the final test brought back some minor but time-consuming little issues to fix before rebuilding an entire version each time delayed release by 48 hours or more, quickly bringing us back to Friday, and for this we don't like to do a Friday launch. Please forgive us. This devlog has been waiting for publication for the past 2 weeks, and we had hoped to release the FOB sometime already, but it always delayed at the last minute with no replacement to take its place, hence the silence. So this is a devblog, they're saying there, so we can call it a devblog from now on. There you go. So a little bit of historical context. Each WARNO milestone is named after a famous French marshal active during the Napoleonic Wars. As we've mentioned, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name again, and we're just going to move on by saying he's one of Napoleon's marshals. So he was born in 1757 of modest origins. He enlisted in the Royal Army at 17. He soon became famous for his swordsmanship in one of many duels he was to fight in his lifetime. He killed a noble officer, forcing him to desert and go into exile. For the next 13 years he travelled across Europe working as a mercenary for the Russians and the Prussians. He then settled briefly in Saxony, Naples and Portugal, usually earning a living as a fencing master. He returned to France then in full revolution in 1792 and enlisted again, but this time in the Republic's armies, a young army lacking officers and military talent due to emigration of the nobles. He knew everything there was to know about military life, and his rise was meteoric. In about a year he was promoted from sergeant to general de division, and that's the rank he held when young General Napoleon Bonaparte took command of the Army of Italy, in which he served. His division played a key role in most of Napoleon's First Italian campaign's major victories, but especially in Castiglione, which Napoleon later granted him as a ducal title. But in 1797 his military career was already in its zenith. Rallied to Napoleon's empire, he was among the first generals to receive the Marshal's baton. He took part in Napoleon's lightning campaigns of 1805 and 1806 in Moravia and Prussia, but always as the commander in reserve under Napoleon's direct command. Nearly killed in 1807, it would take him 3 years to recover from his wounds and be fit again to command, and sent to Spain in 1810, he proved as incompetent as most of his colleagues. Yet he established himself as the greatest looter of the Grand Army, which was quite a national sport, and in 1812 he was to garrison Germany while the Grand Army was freezing to death in Russia, but fought well at the Battle of Leipzig in 1813. Well enough that Napoleon gave him a major independent command in 1814, the Armée de l'Aisne, which was to prevent an invasion from the Alps in Italy. Although his army was far weaker than expected on paper, his complete lack of activity in the campaign brought suspicion that he had been bought by the Allies. When Napoleon abdicated, he rallied to the Bourbons monarchy immediately. He and Napoleon met one last time just after the Emperor's abdication. On his way to Marseille to board a ship for his exile in Elba, Napoleon decided to stop and bid farewell to his old friend from 1797. But as soon as Napoleon stepped out of his car, his former marshal subjected him to a barrage of insults and reproaches. Such was the end of their friendship. In 1815, when Napoleon returned during the 100 Days, Augereau attempted to regain Napoleon's favours, but the latter wouldn't even meet him, had him stricken from the list of marshals and labelled a traitor for his poor 1814 performance. Of course, this really upset Louis, and when he returned to his throne 3 months later, Augereau was stripped of his military titles and pensions. He died a year later on his estate. So the next subheading is Words Have Meaning. Let's get back to 1989, they say. In Wargame Red Dragon, the term FOB was used for Forward Operating Base, although FOBs would provide logistical support to local troops as they did in game. A real FOB would be also housing troops and sometimes even artillery or mortar support, helipads, all of that stuff. This is a much bigger role than our in-game FOBs were actually providing. Therefore, FOBs in WARNO are called Field Supply Points, referring to the provisional field depot or ammo dump, although containing more than just ammunition. The model has also been designed in order to look more realistic, like it is more a provisional structure established close to the front line to supply the combat troops with ammunition, fuel and rations. But what is a FOB? To hell with the semantics, what do the FSP do in game, you shall ask? Well, if you are new to UGen games, you might be confused as to why some people are clamoring about them. So an FSP is a unique unit in WARNO. It is indeed the only building you can deploy. You'll be allowed to take one and only one in your deck, occupying a logistics slot. Since it is a building, it can only be deployed during the deployment phase. If you don't use them, then you won't be able to deploy it later. So make sure you plan ahead if you need one in your deck, or if not deployed from the start, it will just fill one precious slot for nothing. So the FSP are basically a huge reserve of supply which can be used to resupply other units with ammunitions, fuel or spare parts / replacements, as in any supply unit. You just have to bring another unit close by and it will be resupplied, but of course the best use you can make of it is to refill more mobile supply vehicles. Once empty, the latter can be brought to your FSP and supply will be transferred from the building to the mobile units, refilling them before sending them back to the front line. And then you've got a supply chain. Supplies only go from the FSP to a unit, not the other way around. You can't resupply the FSP, but don't worry, they hold a lot of supply. Of course, the FSP will become a prime target for the enemy. Since it can't be moved once spotted, you can expect heavy shelling and air bombardment, hence you better keep some AA nearby. Yet they won't go boom in the first enemy round. FSP are very resilient, it'll take a little bit of firepower to take them down, but when this happens, make sure not to have any friendly units in the vicinity. No one wants to be nearby when the ammunition depot detonates. The other option, of course, is to neutralize the enemy FSP by capturing it, just as you can with any other supply unit in the game. The FSP will surrender to the enemy, who will then be able to use the supply for his own troops. If you don't want your FSP to end up feeding the enemy, make sure to guard it well against sneaky special forces. That's what security troops are meant for. So other things in this update, there are some map updates. FSP aren't the only thing coming to this milestone. Iron Water and Ripple maps have been upgraded. During WARNO's early access, we made significant improvements to the existing maps. In this instance, we worked on Iron Water and Ripple, which received significant fixes and changes, including fixing bugs identified by players, improved vegetation, improved cities, improved water riverbank treatment on Iron Water, optimization of visual effects, lights and colors, and improved in-game performance. We hope these updates will improve the gameplay experience for our players, and we remain committed to continually working to provide superior gaming experience. So let's move on to the patch notes. So features introduce the field supply points, aka the FOB, added to each battle group. Data optimization, we've optimized disk space for WARNO from 56GB to 25GB. If you need to replay old replays, it is necessary to switch the Steam branch to an older compatibility save. Oh dear. That's going to be annoying for me again. Ripple and Iron Water maps have been reworked. Improvements in urban rendering, colorimetry and light processing. Code fixes. Fixed button at the end of the tutorials which restarted the same tutorial, fixed a Puma HC1 supply, which no longer uses fuel, fixed a feedback placement in the game, fixed the loss threshold in the lobby, which sometimes showed huge numbers, fixed the voice line, some infantry talking continuously, fixed feedbacks that were offset on the minimap, Polish translation improved thanks to Green HD. Please say thank you to him on the Discord. That's from me personally. Eugen haven't mentioned it there, but I'm mentioning it again. Improved Sniper FX's speed. Fixed the orientation of the barrels and some mortars. Fixed the display HE values of the S13 and S24 rockets. Fixed the M107A2 salvo length. Generic standardized LRRP availability in veteran. NATO Berlin Command added 1 card of British snipers. Pact decreased the East German MiG-29's price from 245 to 215. Zentrum adding a card of FS Scharfschütze, snipers basically. Swapped the VSS Ventores for the Dragunov sniper rifle for the Spetsnaz using them, and add a more realistic version of the VSS Ventores for the Saparai Spetsnaz. Short range but better aim and reload time. So there you go, that is everything on here. They say see you on the battlefield. I'm afraid this is a bit of a quick one today, and I won't be doing as much editing because I'm working on another big video, but this came as a complete surprise and I didn't know what was happening, so I just don't have time to edit the sound like I usually would. So apologies if I've left in some breathing sounds and other bits and pieces, but hopefully this gets the message across for those of you who like to listen rather than read. Unfortunately, again, because I'm in a bit of a rush this week, I won't be putting in any pictures from the Instagram, so you'll have to wait till next week for that. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all soon.